What is going on, Nav Nation? PokéNav here, and welcome back to another video. Today's topic for discussion: what will be the next great trading card game in the grand echelon of trading card games out there in the long history of TCGs? What will be the next one to rise to the level of greatness? Now, before we jump into today's discussion, I do want to announce the winner from the third and final giveaway for the 10,000 subscriber celebration, and that is none other than Kevin Wetzel. Kevin, big shout out to you, my friend, for winning this final giveaway. You will be getting the Shining Fates Elite Trainer Box, the 4 Evolutions booster packs, and the 4 Burning Shadows booster packs as well. And that will wrap it up for the 10,000 subscriber celebration. Again, a big thank you to all of you out there in the Nav Nation for your continued support over this last year and beyond. So guys, let's go ahead and jump right into this discussion now. And we're going to start off with existing TCGs that are currently out right now that I think could have potential and could rise to, as I said, that level of greatness that we've seen with, in my opinion, the big 3. Now, to me, the big 3 TCGs out there, the ones that are the most popular and probably the greatest of all time, would be Pokemon, Magic, and Yu-Gi-Oh! And what do each of these have in common? That is time. They have proven that over time they have been the absolute most successful, and that's really the hallmark of a great TCG, is being able to sustain itself over the long term. And Pokemon, Magic, and Yu-Gi-Oh! Have been able to do that. So what TCGs are currently out there right now that are relatively new, maybe released in the last few years, that have that same kind of potential to rise to that level? The first one here that we're going to start with is perhaps the most controversial, and that is Medizoo. Now, Medizoo kind of took the world by storm last year when they released their product, and the big thing about it was the first edition box that they had released for Medizoo. Now, this is the big thing, in my opinion, that I think may lend to the long-term success of Medizoo, is that they essentially took all of these sought-after features with other TCGs and combined it into one. Now, the first one, we've already mentioned it, is that first edition symbol. What we've seen with other TCGs that have utilized this in the past, we go back to Wizards of the Coast era for Pokemon, we go to Yu-Gi-Oh! As well, who has also used first edition stamps on their cards, first edition sets. This has been very successful among especially collectors and investors. Maybe not so much with competitive players. You guys can disagree with me if you'd like, but this is something that definitely appeals to the collectors and the investors out there. And Medizoo has obviously realized that and utilized it within their products. The next thing here is that the creatures in Medizoo, they look eerily similar to many of the other famous characters from the TCGs. You can compare that to Pokemon, you can compare that to Digimon, you can also even compare it to Magic characters as well. They've really taken all of these TCGs and these various characters, and they've really kind of melded them into their own. And, you know, honestly, it's kind of a double-edged sword, right? Because they're essentially a copycat, but they're also understanding what it is that makes these characters successful, some of the features that lend to the success of these TCGs, and they've really combined both of those into Medizoo. And perhaps the biggest thing that Medizoo has going for it is they have one hell of a promoter in Gary King Pokemon. If you guys have not seen, Gary has been one of the biggest figureheads for Medizoo. You can check out his social medias, and there is more to do with Medizoo than there is even with Pokemon. And Gary was the guy, if you guys don't know, he was the guy that essentially brought Pokemon from Japan over to the United States and North America in general. And he has been just as big of a promoter of Medizoo as I've seen him in Pokemon. And so when you have a figurehead like that behind your brand, I think you're definitely going down the right path, or at least potentially going down the right path. But overall with Medizoo, there's some things that I like. I don't necessarily like the fact that it came out during the biggest boom of TCGs ever. And they've essentially copied a lot of different things, right? They're trying to make all these various things work for them in their TCG. They're released during the biggest boom of TCGs probably in history. So it's to be seen whether this is going to be a long-lasting TCG. When we look into others like Pokemon and Digimon or Yu-Gi-Oh, they also have an umbrella of different products. It's an umbrella brand. Where Pokemon, we've got the anime, we've got the games. Yu-Gi-Oh, you've got the anime, you've got the games, whereas Medizoo is just a TCG, and the fact that it was released during the height, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see with Medizoo. I'm not totally sold on this one yet, but I think there is still pretty good potential there. The next one that we'll jump into is Dragon Ball Super. Now, this one is probably my favorite of all of the potential TCGs out there to reach the heights of greatness of Pokemon, Magic, and Yu-Gi-Oh! This is one of the most famous animes of all time. For many of us out there who started with Pokemon, our eventual transition was into Dragon Ball Z and then eventually into Dragon Ball Super. This is undoubtedly one of the best shows of all time to have ever been released from Japan. And now we've got a TCG, a really good TCG that has been created around this overall brand. Now, Dragon Ball did have a card game back in the late 90s, early 2000s, which was released by Score Entertainment. And one of the cool things that I like about the Dragon Ball Super card game is even though this is very new, it's only been released over the last few years, with those score cards, you almost have a little bit of a vintage and a modern feel with the Dragon Ball TCG brand. Now, the score cards are obviously completely separate, whole different entity that released those versus Dragon Ball Super, but it still gives you that vintage and modern feel that you get with something like Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Magic. So I do like that aspect. The other big thing, if you guys didn't see recently, Dragon Ball Super broke some serious records in that a Beckett Black Label Son Goku The Awakened Power sold for a record $90,000. And that is nothing to shake a stick at, guys. That $90,000 is encroaching upon some of the top tier Pokemon cards out there, Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh! So that really lends credence, I think, to how popular this set and this TCG is becoming and the potential that I think it really has. So Dragon Ball Super, definitely on my radar, something that I think a lot of people are including in their collections, in their investments, and I think has quite a bit of potential over the long term. The next one that we'll move on to here is Digimon. Now, Digimon, this is not the first time that we have seen a card game from this brand. Back in the early 2000s, we also had the original Digimon game. I believe it was released by Bandai at that point. So now we've basically, much like the Dragon Ball brand, we've got a resurgence of new cards coming out for Digimon. From everything that I've seen, players, especially competitive players, have absolutely loved the Digimon TCG. Seems like it's very inclusive. Seems like it's a lot of fun to play. Now, I haven't played it personally, but there are a lot of fun mechanics that many competitive players out there really like. For Digimon, here's the thing. It's always been a very popular anime, much like Pokemon, much like Yu-Gi-Oh! But I always thought it was kind of a cheap knockoff of Pokemon, in my opinion. One of the big reasons why I never jumped into it back in the day, back in the late 90s and early 2000s, I just kind of thought it was a knockoff of Pokemon. But it has proven time and time again to really be embedded in the social consciousness of pop culture, of anime lovers, and even with TCG enthusiasts as well. It has really stuck around for the long term, and I do, in fact, really like the artwork of the new Digimon card game. I think that it's a lot better than the old one. I think that the mechanics and the playability of it is a lot better as well. So this is another one I think to keep an eye out for. Again, very early in its infancy to really determine where it's going to go long term, because a lot of this stuff is going to be determined by what happens when TCGs start to decrease in popularity, right? Once we get out of the pandemic, people start going back to normal things in their lives. that'll really be the main determining factor of how a lot of these will perform, because they are also relatively new. The last one that we'll go ahead and discuss here for existing TCGs is Flesh and Blood. Now, I admittedly am not too familiar with this. This has mainly been brought to me by proxy from other players out there, other collectors, but it has been very popular since its release back in 2019. It's a much more mature TCG, much more similar to Magic than some of the other ones that we've discussed here today. So it does appeal to a different type of demographic than many of the people that are probably collecting, playing, investing in Dragon Ball, Pokemon, Digimon. So it's going to appeal to an older, more mature demographic. But the artwork, again, very similar to Magic, in my opinion. A lot of the playability seems similar to Magic. A lot of the artwork and the characters, very similar as well. So I think that with all of that being considered, a lot, just having a little bit older demographic also, I think, appeals to a higher disposable income, right? There's going to be more people that are going to have that higher disposable income rather than something like Digimon, Pokemon that is more tied towards children, and obviously they're not going to have the same level of spending power that someone that would be collecting or investing in Flesh and Blood would necessarily have. So many of these cards could be absorbed much more readily by the market than some of these other TCGs. So that's pretty much it for all of the existing TCGs. Now, this is not an exhaustive list by any means. These are just some of the trading card games that I think have some serious potential. And then now that we've discussed those that are existing, I want to discuss the TCGs that are yet to be released. These are the ones that are upcoming that we'll be seeing soon. And the one that I want to discuss here today is My Hero Academia. Now, this will be releasing in August, tentatively in August. And this is a TCG that is created by Jasco Games. Now, Jasco has released a few other card games in the past. They've done Soul Calibur as well as Mortal Kombat. So they do have some experience in some of these trading card games. Admittedly, those TCGs did not perform very well, at least from what I've seen out there among collectors and investors. Not necessarily a very hyped card game that, at least for Jasco's past, but we'll have to see with My Hero. The thing that it does have going for it is this is the second most popular anime out there, at least in North America, and I believe also in Japan. So much like Pokemon, much like Dragon Ball, these are very, very popular animes, very popular shows that I think a lot of the fans of the anime will transition over to the card game to at least give it a try. And that's really all you need as a TCG, is just that chance in the market. And I think My Hero, by being such a popular anime, definitely has that ability to transition a lot of people over to the game itself. Now, this was supposed to release back in April of 2020, but because of the pandemic, it has been pushed out now till August of this year. So we will see. We still have a few months left for hype to build, for people to start talking about it. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to mention it here today, is that it's one of the new TCGs coming out that I think really does have potential. And it's also not the first time. It's not the first time that we've seen this TCG. There was a previous one that was released by Shinobi back in 2018. Again, we haven't really heard anything about it, right? So it's not the first time that we're seeing My Hero. So it kind of makes me a little bit trepidatious knowing that we've had one that was released before, kind of flopped, and here we're trying to give it another shot with, with Jasco that doesn't necessarily have a good track record with CCGs. So it'll be interesting to see what happens here. But I think, especially now that we're in a height of TCGs and popularity, I think that this one could very well have great potential. So guys, I think that's going to do it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this conversation on what will be the next great trading card game. Let me know down in the comments below what you guys think. Let me know what you think the next great TCG will be. Let me know if you agree with this list, disagree with it, or what other TCGs out there you think have even more potential. Other than that, guys, I will see you all next time. My name is PokéNav. I'm here to help you navigate the world of Pokemon one video at a time, and I will see you all in the next video.